The reason people don't leave toxic relationships is because they aren't toxic all the time. And especially in the case of a trauma bond, there's a cycle of intermittent positive reinforcement that tricks our brain to endure the bad because of the occasional good. One day you're being yelled at or given the silent treatment, and then the next they're telling you how amazing you are and how they can't imagine life without you. And the reason those cycles of extreme highs followed by extreme lows is so dangerous is because it rewires our brain to stay waiting for the next hit of dopamine. And the question is, why would anyone stay in a relationship like that? We stay because we hope that one day the pain will go away and things will go back to the way they were. We stay because we think maybe if we work hard enough, maybe if we change something, they would treat us better. We stay because even though they're breaking us, it feels like they're the only one that can put us back together and make us feel whole. We stay because we love them, but we're trapped in a cycle of mistreatment followed by sporadic love bombing that repeats itself enough that our brain actually starts to find safety and predictability even in the chaos or abuse. So today I want to talk a little bit about how we get stuck in trauma-bonded relationships and more importantly, how to detach from them. So first, what is a trauma bond? A trauma bond is an intense psychological and emotional attachment to a cycle where someone mistreats you through neglect or cruelty or emotional withdrawal or all of the above, but then randomly switches and is affectionate and kind and maybe even apologetic. They can go from demeaning you and belittling you and calling you names and screaming at you to just a few days later, pretending like nothing ever happened and love bombing you with praise and admiration and gifts and attention. And if I can be honest with you, I hate to use the word addicted here because it's such a strong word, but I began to feel addicted to someone that I knew was mistreating me. I couldn't imagine my life without them, and that's a dangerous thought. The idea of leaving scared me, but the idea of them leaving me sent me into a panic. So I did anything I could to avoid that, which meant abandoning myself in order to not be abandoned. I wasn't just afraid of being left. I was afraid of what that would mean if I was left. It would have meant that I would have given everything that I had to this person, and it wasn't enough, which must mean that I'm not enough, right? And that's the fear. I'll never be enough. No one's ever going to love me if they know the real me. But healing means detaching from that story that you're not good enough. And healing requires us to stop internalizing their negativity towards us. They're projecting their own insecurities onto us. It's time that we realize that their bad behavior and their toxicity has nothing to do with you. And the problem with a trauma bond is you start to equate the highs and lows with actual intimacy, but it's not. You start to see them treating you right as reconciliation and repair for their bad behavior, and it's not. They never actually took accountability for the ways that they treated you. They just tried to sweep it under the rug. They never asked you how their actions impacted you. That's not repairing anything. And you're trying to forgive them and move on, but that's one of the reasons that you're feeling even more numb and disconnected and hopeless in this relationship. Because intensity isn't the same thing as intimacy, and chaos doesn't lead to connection. And it feels like you've been through war together, right? You've survived so much together. You feel so bonded. But the truth is, they caused the war. They built the roller coaster that's giving you emotional whiplash. It's not something you're going through together. They caused it. And a big part of this video is condemning how they're treating you. What they're doing is wrong, and you never deserve to be called names or mistreated or chronically disrespected. Someone has to call them out on how they manipulate and gaslight and how every conversation turns into a fight, and even your vulnerability is somehow taken as an attack. And the other part of this video is reminding you that even though they built the roller coaster, at a certain point we have to take accountability for the fact that we're still choosing to ride it. Just because you feel bonded doesn't mean that you're in a safe relationship. Just because you feel connected doesn't mean that they aren't actively betraying you. Just because you feel close to this person doesn't mean that they are actually building trust and intimacy with you. And healing actually occurs when we stop asking, do I feel bonded? And ask, is this person actually safe? And if not, what's keeping me in this unsafe relationship? And please don't mishear me. I'm not talking about a standard of perfection. I'm not saying that we shouldn't give our partners grace. I'm not saying we shouldn't forgive each other. What I'm talking about is a pattern of someone who says they love you, but you do not feel safe around this person because of their hurtful actions that they refuse to change. So step one of breaking a trauma bond is awareness. Let's just be honest with ourselves. If something bothered you, if you were hurt by something they said or did, could you bring it up to them in a respectfully vulnerable way and be met with empathy and comfort and curiosity? Or would you be dismissed? Would they take it as an attack? Would they get defensive? Would they escalate and blame you, because it's easy to make excuses for them. We give them the benefit of the doubt, we rationalize, but the truth is, you know that behavior is unacceptable. You know your vulnerability doesn't deserve to be punished, because you would never do that to them, would you? You would never be allowed to talk to them the way that they talk to you. You would never be able to treat them the way that they treat you and not be punished for it, right? And why do you think that is? It's because they think they are entitled. They don't see a problem with their behavior. They don't see a problem with the way that they speak to you. And I'm just here to compassionately remind you, that's not love. Because real love is kind and gentle and considerate. Love is all about mutual respect and equality. We're both equal in value and importance in this relationship. That means I don't speak to you in a way that I would not like to be spoken to. Love never calls names or screams at or hits or belittles or devalues or dismisses. That's not love. Now, do we all mess up? Do we say something in the heat of the moment that we regret? Absolutely we do. But love takes accountability. Love repairs. That's the difference. Love cares about how my words and actions impacted you, right? Because if I love you, then I'm going to put my ego and pride to the side for the benefit of this relationship and you. And one of the biggest problems with trauma-bonded relationships is that so many people have no idea what love even is, because healthy, safe love wasn't modeled for you. And we would be fooling ourselves if we truly think that our past doesn't play a role in our present relationships. Because you learned things as a child. You learned whether it was safe to express feelings. You learned whether you need to earn love and affection. You learned whether or not you should actually ever trust someone with your heart. You learned that love was chaotic and unpredictable, that that's normal. Or maybe that was where you first learned that you need to abandon your own needs and desires to feel connected to another person, right? I need to pay close attention to their moods so I can predict the next outburst. And maybe that's exactly where your over-functioning started. I need to suppress. I need to stay silent. I need to sacrifice myself or do the work of two people to feel safe in a relationship. And my guess is, if you're in this type of relationship, you went through some stuff as a child. And you might downplay it, you might dismiss it, it wasn't that bad. But that doesn't change the fact that somewhere along the way, your body felt unsafe. And now you're coping through people-pleasing and anxious attachment and giving all of yourself to someone who seems to only take. And the sad reality is trauma-bonded relationships need certain traits from their partners in order to function. I'm not victim blaming. I'm not saying you ever deserve to be in this relationship. I'm saying what helped me on my healing journey was realizing that narcissistic and abusive people need certain character traits from their partner, or else the relationship wouldn't work. They need someone who puts someone else's needs, wants, and desires above their own. They need someone who is scared to set boundaries because of the conflict or disconnection that it could cause. They need someone who gives second chances and forgives because they believe the best about people. They need someone who is susceptible to shame and low self-esteem. Someone who finds it difficult to advocate for their needs because it feels selfish. Someone who questions themselves. Maybe I'm the problem here. But just remember, you're the only one ever asking that question, aren't you? They've never thought, how am I the problem here? These relationships need one partner who is willing to apologize first, because you're willing to take accountability for your side. You're more than happy to empathize with their perspective, aren't you? In fact, you think, if I could just find the right words, maybe they would understand me or stop yelling at me. You have to be loyal and submissive and accommodating, or else this relationship would simply fall apart, because the only thing holding it together is you doing the work of two people, you abandoning yourself, you over-functioning, because that's what's felt normal for you your whole life. And you want to know the saddest part about all this? You could have told me all that, and I would have agreed with you 100%, but I still wouldn't have left. Because the problem isn't learning more information. The problem is attachment. We feel deeply bonded to this person. We're addicted to the idea that this person is our source of safety and security. We're convinced that we can love them into changing, or that we can endure hardships because that's just what love does, right? We can't imagine our life without them. And one of the reasons that happens is subconsciously our brain is connecting this bond with the attachment that we had with our parents all those years ago. And when you were a kid who wasn't self-sufficient, what would it mean for that attachment to be broken? It could be catastrophic. You could die. And even though you know intellectually you wouldn't die if they left, or if you left them, your nervous system doesn't seem to care, because that's how it feels when this attachment is threatened in any way. But in reality, we're not moving towards healing. We're recreating the dysfunctional attachments from our past. We're keeping those wounds open by staying and not learning how to detach from them. It's going to cost us. I had to learn that lesson the hard way. I had to feel the pain of abandonment. I had to feel the pain of getting cheated on. I had to feel the pain of being neglected and dismissed by someone who claimed they loved me, because the pain of staying has to become greater than the pain of leaving for you to finally face your fears and detach from a bond that's actually destroying you. And the last thing that I would ever want is for you to experience pain. But if it's that pain that leads to your healing and learning that you deserve so much more than the bare minimum, if it's that pain that leads to your self-worth being reignited in your soul and you find the courage to finally show up authentically and talk about your boundaries and needs, if that's the pain that helps you realize that abandonment isn't as scary as you thought it would be, because you're still here for you. And once we go through that, we realize we felt far more alone in the toxic relationship than we do single. If that's the pain we're talking about, then it's worth it. So if we want to break out of the trauma bond, we have to detach from the fantasy and ground ourselves in reality. You're hopeful of who they could become if they weren't so angry or stressed or busy, but that fantasy is keeping you stuck. You need to acknowledge where you are right now. I don't care about who they could be. I don't care about their potential. Who have they shown themselves to consistently be for you right now? Are they a safe place for you? Are they consistently kind and considerate? Can they hold space for you to be honest and vulnerable when something they did unintentionally hurts you? Are they a source of peace or chaos in your life? And these are the questions I get all the time. Well, do they know? Is the narcissistic person aware? It doesn't matter if they know. What matters is it keeps happening even though you've asked them to stop. We keep ourselves stuck by saying, well, maybe they don't know, instead of remembering they aren't interested in knowing. Right? They don't care about self-reflection. They aren't interested in changing their behavior. They know that because they've told you numerous times. So stop getting hung up on questions where it would require you to put in more work to fix something that they don't see as broken. Because you deserve someone who is just as concerned with hearing you and understanding your pain as you are with finding the perfect words so they don't feel attacked. Stop getting stuck in doing their work for them. Are they a narcissist? Are they avoidant attachment? Or are they just a jerk? Does this meet criteria for abuse? It doesn't matter, because whatever the answer is, what's next? It still ends with you trying to convince someone else to treat you better and them inevitably dismissing or invalidating you. You need to detach from the illusion that this is love, right? It's intense, it's chaotic, it's an emotional roller coaster. That doesn't mean it's love, because love doesn't keep you in fight or flight. Love doesn't belittle or refuse to take accountability. Love doesn't chronically invalidate someone else's experience. If this was love, you wouldn't feel so confused all the time. The reason you're confused is because your brain knows something that your heart won't admit, that this isn't safe or sustainable. But what if they treat the next person better? I don't care. They didn't treat you right. Right? They broke trust over and over again in this relationship. Healing happens when you stop being jealous about the next person and you're actually sad for the next person, because the odds are they aren't going to magically become more emotionally mature or committed or learn how to love. The odds are they are going to continue hurting someone. Breaking a trauma bond requires us to detach from our own shame, because it's easy for you to think that you're the problem here. Because ever since childhood, you've been really good at looking inward to try to figure out how you've contributed to this situation somehow, right? How might you be at fault? But do you know why we do that? Because there's power in that. I mean, just think about it. If you caused this, then you can change it. But they are using your guilt and shame to manipulate you, right? I mean, if you think that somehow you caused them to mistreat you, then they can keep not taking accountability, they can play the victim, and they can just blame you. And that's just going to keep you stuck. No matter how much you blame yourself, it's not going to fix their anger problem, is it? No matter how much you self-reflect, it doesn't lead to them actually considering your perspective. Because once again, they don't see anything wrong with their behavior. So I'm asking you, detach from the false narrative in your head that you are not good enough. And I realize that we can't heal all that in one video, but just for a moment, let me be a competing voice in your mind. You're not broken. You're not damaged. You're lovable. And I know you're not perfect. You have flaws just like the rest of us. But you deserve to be loved and cared for and prioritized. You deserve someone who feels lucky to be with you. And there's a part of you where it's really hard to hear those things because you're not sure if they're true. But they are. And sometimes our shame keeps us stuck because we're embarrassed for how much we've already put up with. So we stop talking to our friends and family about what we're going through because we're tired of complaining about it. We're embarrassed to describe how terrible it is again, and it makes us feel terrible for continuing to put up with it. So we begin to hate ourselves. But that hatred and shame just keeps us stuck. And I need you to start separating from that. You didn't do anything wrong. You're not a bad person. Anyone can get trapped in a trauma bond, especially people who have endured some trauma growing up. You can't break this through hate. The only way to break it is love. And love means treating ourselves the way that we treat other people. And how would you feel if you found out your best friend or your children were in a relationship where their partner was treating them the way that your partner treats you? It would break your heart, wouldn't it? That needs to wake us up. And whatever you would say to them is exactly what you need to tell yourself. You would say, you didn't do anything wrong, but you know this person doesn't bring out the best in you. You know that you're in pain. You know that their behavior is unacceptable and they refuse to change. And I know it's really hard to leave. I know that you love and care about them, but I'm happy to help you find a way out if you'll let me. It's time to detach from the idea that boundaries and talking about what we need to feel safe and loved leads to disconnection. Healthy boundaries don't cause relationships to fall apart. The people that punish you for setting healthy boundaries are the same people who benefited from you not having any. And if you're anything like me, you didn't set boundaries because it felt hurtful, it felt selfish, it felt scary. But the truth is you deserve someone who actually wants to know your boundaries. Because all boundaries are is just putting words and limits to what actually feels good for you in a relationship. Just ask yourself the question, would you want your partner to actually be honest about what feels good for them in a relationship? Of course you would, because you care about their limits, you care about their needs, you care about what helps them feel valued and respected and honored in this relationship, right? You want them to feel loved. You want to know what would it take for that to happen. You deserve the same thing. Now, this is extremely important. If you feel like you're in an abusive situation, the solution isn't to set boundaries with unsafe people. The boundary is you removing yourself from unsafe environments. And yeah, I know that's extremely difficult, but the number one priority is your safety. And sometimes the safest thing you can do is go no contact. We have to detach from the idea that we would be abandoning them if we left. And I get it, you never want them to feel abandoned because once again, you're treating them exactly the way that you want to be treated. You want to save them from that pain. But what you need to realize is they have already abandoned you in large and small ways in this relationship through their actions. They have no interest in getting help. They have no interest in healing or empathy or mutual respect. They have no interest in getting clean or sober. They have no interest in reciprocating the effort and energy that you're putting into this relationship. Until you finally say that you're done. And then the story changes. Now they'll do anything. Now they're begging you. They're telling you that you're abandoning them, that you're leaving without even trying. But you and I both know that part of the reason you're so frustrated and exhausted and burnt out is because all you've done is try to make this work the whole time. Now, whether you give them another chance is up to you. But healing starts when you face your fear of leaving this relationship or face your fear of them leaving, when you know this relationship isn't healthy or safe long term. Healing happens when you set a standard for how you know you deserve to be treated. Not perfectly, just consistently, right? Healing starts when you start advocating for your needs again and understand that regardless of whether you stay with them or not, that old relationship, that old dynamic has to end. And we can choose to build a new relationship together with a foundation of actual trust and intimacy and safety, or I have to step away. But whatever happens, you have to start working on that foundation in yourself today. Detachment happens when you realize that their bad behavior had nothing to do with you. They had a choice just like everyone else does on how they want to treat other people. They made their choices over and over again, and what they didn't realize is that actions have consequences. And every time we call someone names or we dismiss them or neglect them, it comes at a cost. And the truth is, they are simply too immature to realize that they are just reaping the distance and disconnection that they sowed for a long time. But you need to detach from your role as savior, because I know you. You're an empath. You're a giver. You wanted to heal them. You wanted to help them. You wanted to rescue them from their pain. But they didn't want to be rescued, did they? They wanted to take whatever you were willing to give, use it up, and spit it back out. People that truly want to heal don't make it someone else's job. They take full ownership and they do the work. Don't let someone tell you that they want another chance, but they have no interest in learning about doing the work to heal their own self-centeredness and pride and control issues. Healing comes when we detach from the belief that we needed to sacrifice our own needs and boundaries in order to be loved, right? That we needed to abandon ourselves in order to be accepted, because that's not true. Or if it was true with them, it's not supposed to be that way. I had to realize the harsh truth. I was mad at them for not treating me right. I was angry at them for not respecting my boundaries, for not considering me, for not prioritizing me. But I wasn't prioritizing me. I wasn't advocating for me. I wasn't respecting my own boundaries. And healing started when I realized that's my job to do first. I need to stop outsourcing those jobs to someone else and do them myself. But Jimmy, why aren't you picking on them, right? They're the problem. They're neglectful. They're toxic. Why aren't you getting onto them? Because I can't control them. And there's like a 1% chance that they have any interest in watching any of my videos to learn how to repair from the damage that their self-centeredness and emotional abuse has caused. That's why I have to focus on you. Detaching from a trauma bond isn't only about leaving them. It's about finding you again, coming back to you. You don't remember who you are. You've spent so much time serving and sacrificing for others, you don't even know what feels good in a relationship to you. The truth is, you've looked to them to validate your own worth and value for a long time. You've looked to this relationship to feel needed and important, right? But healing begins when we start to find that safety and security in ourselves first. Healing comes when we realize, maybe I don't need to talk more. Maybe they don't have an interest in understanding me. Why am I writing this long paragraph to try to convince them that what they did was wrong? They've already told me they don't care. Why am I giving them another opportunity to twist my words and become the victim? They aren't interested or capable in having a good faith discussion where anyone's perspective is taken into account except their own. And I don't care how toxic this relationship was. For some of you, when you detach, even though you knew this relationship wasn't healthy, even if you know everything that I just talked about, when you finally go no contact or break it off for good, you're still going to experience a lot of grief and loss and loneliness. And it's completely normal to think about them all the time. It's normal to miss them a lot. You're going to dream about them. You're going to cry over them. You're going to start to wonder, maybe you've made a mistake, right? You're going to remember all the good times and you're going to forget a lot of the bad times. Was it really that bad? Did I try everything? I mean, maybe it would be different if we did X, Y, and Z in the future. I just need you to know that's completely normal. Let yourself grieve. Let yourself feel all of those feelings. Acknowledge the fear. Acknowledge the sadness. And acknowledge how confusing it is to miss someone who you know mistreated you. Feel it all. Accept it all. But hold firm to the plan. The plan is, we know they weren't right for us. Maybe they aren't a bad person. Doesn't really matter. They weren't your person. You gave them enough chances. I promise you, you did. You gave it 100%. You know that. It's in these moments when we're most vulnerable to remember the moments when they laughed when you cried or told you to stop being so dramatic. Remember all those moments you were left alone in your pain, where you knew it wasn't safe to share a hurt or feeling or need because it would just start another fight. I'm not saying only remember those moments. You can remember the good times too, but don't you dare forget that those good times were always followed up by some really bad ones. And you know that love isn't supposed to wreck your nervous system like that. You shouldn't live in a constant state of fear or anxiety. Yes, love is a sacrifice, and no matter who you're with, it's going to come with some hardships, but love should never feel like a constant battlefield. Love should calm you, not confuse you. Love would never want your partner walking on eggshells to feel safe around you. And it's in these moments that it's vital that we talk to a good therapist or coach that can help us breathe through and sit in these uncomfortable moments filled with pain and regret and hopelessness. And they can help us to move through and navigate these. Because like I said before, it often feels like we're breaking an addiction, doesn't it? And there's a reason that addictions are really hard to break. They can help you with that. The truth is we have to starve this addiction. And the way we stop is by realizing that addictions are escapes. We were using this bond to cover up our pain and fear, and it's time that we face it. And sitting in that discomfort requires us to learn a new skill of emotional regulation and positive self-talk, and reminding ourselves that this pain is worth it. It doesn't mean we did anything wrong. It's a normal part of grief. We're going to use this pain and see it as an opportunity for growth and healing and finding safety and security in ourselves and other safe people. The way we make this pain worse is by staying in contact with them and using them as a source of safety and starting this whole painful process over again. Remind yourself that you are working towards a new vision for your life. You're headed in a new direction. Keep taking those steps, and the more that you put one foot in front of the other, headed in a direction where you know you want to end up with peace and safety and healthy connection. And of course, there's going to be times where you want to look back, but you'll be farther and farther away from that old life and those old cycles. And when you turn around, it will inspire you to keep moving forward. Missing them doesn't mean you made the wrong choice, right? It just means that your body misses the love and connection that you hoped you would get in that relationship. But now you know that relationships require a heck of a lot more than someone just saying they love you. They need safety and intimacy and connection. And you know that wasn't possible in that relationship. And if you're anything like me, we want them to reach out and tell us how sorry they are and how they made such a big mistake taking us for granted and they would never do that again. And if they could just get us back, they'd make everything right. But there comes a time when you have to detach from that hope and just move in a different direction, even if your brain feels like you're making a wrong decision. Allow yourself to possibly be wrong and still make a firm decision. I've chosen to end this relationship for good. And when your brain says, yeah, but what if it could have been better? Respond with, you might be right, and I still made my choice. I'm not going back. And yes, it's true. It's going to be hard for a little while, but scroll through the comments because it gets better. And on the other side of this is a version of you that you haven't seen in a long time. Someone who loves themselves and feels good about themselves and knows what they deserve in a relationship. I'm proud of you for taking these steps. I'm praying for you and pulling for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this today. Can't wait to see you in the next one.